Hello everybody, my name is Raven. Welcome back to another video. So this is a bit of a different video than I've really made before. The film we are going to be talking about is Wes Anderson's 2009 loose adaptation of Fantastic Mr. Fox. This film defined a large part of my childhood growing up. I rented this movie out several times and I found it to be a very beautiful, playful, and adventurous story. Alright, so the main synopsis of this film reads, after 12 years of bucolic bliss, Mr. Fox breaks a promise to his wife and raids the farms of their human neighbors Bogus Bunce and Bean. Giving in to his animal instincts endangers not only his marriage but also the lives of his family and their animal friend. When the farmers force Mr. Fox and company deep underground, he has to resort to his natural craftiness to rise above the opposition. So basically this film is about fatherhood and the dangers of nostalgia as something that takes you back to your youth and pulls you away from the present. And that is exactly what happens throughout this film. Mr. Fox, at the beginning of the film, is this youthful, young, free, adventurous spirit who steals chickens from farmers with his wife. And it seems like a happy arrangement until he gets the word that his wife is pregnant and that they're going to have a kid, and that responsibility is what forces him to have to quit his stealing and his frolicking, and he has to be a father, and that is a very daunting task. And so the film sort of comes back into the present where he is older, working at home. He has a job at a newspaper company in his local area where he writes for a newspaper column. And he's this more rough-hewn figure than he once was. And he still has that craftiness and that adventure in him from his youth. And so the whole film he is struggling with balancing this adventurous spirit that he still has with that of fatherhood and being a father and all the responsibility that comes with that. And then we are introduced to his younger son, Ash, who seems to be struggling himself with his own identity and who he is as a person growing up. And his parents don't seem to give him enough attention, so he feels like he's caught in a rough place where his parents don't really give him the attention he needs. He's often sidelined, and it's an interesting dynamic that they explore throughout the film. And ultimately, Ash sort of grows beyond who he used to be to fully embrace himself. And so there's many different character arcs that I think are central to this film. And I think those are Mr. Fox, Mrs. Fox, Ash, his cousin Christopherson, and the farmers themselves. The director of this film, Wes Anderson, presents this whole narrative story with all these intertwining themes in the platform of stop motion animation. And I think that elevates all of the storylines that he tells in this film. And the stop motion animation doesn't feel tacky or lackluster. It really blossoms, and you really get to see the characters as these materialistic things. And I don't know, as somebody who loves stop motion animated films, this is one of my top favorite just because of the way Wes Anderson uses the stop motion animation not just as a visual storytelling device, but he combines that with all of the storylines that he is telling throughout the film, and it just blends so well together. And I think it's a beautiful choice on his part for this film. I wish this film did better, but it was pitted up against like a bunch of Disney films, a Pixar film, so it was sort of doomed from the beginning, and remains a very underrated film in my opinion. I really have a deep love for this film in its entirety. It is just beautiful cinema. Okay, that aside, let's dive into some of these characters, starting with Ash. I really related with Ash when I was younger because as a youth, I felt like I didn't fit in with most of my other peers. I was teased. I was looked at differently than them because I was this sort of nerdy, artsy guy. Um, and so Ash's character sort of has this similar conflict within himself where he is different, but he doesn't want to accept that because he's afraid of how that will affect his own life. And he's naive in the sense that he doesn't realize that all the signs are pointing to the fact that he is different. And so the whole film he is sort of overcoming all of these obstacles and finally sort of is able to accept that he is different and embrace that as a good positive thing instead of something that isn't so positive and that takes away from people's sort of perception of him. Um, and one of those big roadblocks is the introduction of his cousin Christopherson, who is this opposite character who's very talented in everything, and he gets most of the spotlight and takes that spotlight away from Ash. And so Ash has sort of this opposition against Christopherson, and it's this great relationship that unfolds throughout the film. And you see that grow as well. It grows to where they really do feel like close friends and cousins ultimately. And it's just this movie. I could go on hours about the details of these movies, and this movie in particular, how the characters are so deeply and emotionally created and connected to one another. And it's just, I really love the bond that Christopherson and Ash have in this film. And I used to really love seeing, I used to rewatch the scenes with Christopherson and Ash when I was young, because I felt like they were the most relatable to me at that time. And seeing these two people, characters, sort of at odds with each other, learn to see to see the same way and to see the differences in each other and learn to work together ultimately and to be connected in a family way. It was so personal to me, which is partially why I treasure this movie. I actually have the original book copy of Fantastic Mr. Fox that my elementary school teacher gave to me, from her classroom. I'll put a picture up on screen of the original book. It's actually on my bookshelf right now, and I treasure it as well because it is this part of my childhood growing up that I held very close to me, in a large respect. Now, I want to talk about another character in this movie, Kylie. So Kylie is a sort of a side character um, to Mr. Fox. He is a plumber who Mr. Fox meets when he's house shopping. He's looking for a new home for his family, and he meets Kylie, who's this sort of awkward. He's a I think he's an opossum, um, and I love his design. He's really really adorable. Um, and Kylie is this awkward, just generally charismatic character who is there throughout the film, and he has his moments, and his importance to the plot is sort of just being Mr. Fox's support, like mentally, emotionally. He's always there for Mr. Fox to turn to in sort of stressful situations or just situations in general. Um, and Mr. Fox hires him to help him steal chickens. And so he's a very important character in that he has Mr. Fox's loyalty to a T. Um, and he's just kind of this chill guy. And I feel like that character is also very relatable. Um, in that there's a lot of people who are just relaxed and chill and will be loyal to you, and I think loyalty is one of Kylie's strong suits in this film is that he is just there whenever. He's always available, always putting in input for Mr. Fox, and he's just a fun character that I always really loved in this film when I was younger. And I still love all of these characters now that I'm 25 almost, which is crazy. Because when I first saw this movie, I was like in middle school, which is crazy. Crazy that I've grown up with this movie. And I feel like it's grown up with me just the same as I've grown up with it. And I feel like I've grown up with these characters as well. And so being able to still look at these characters and be like, I remember how much I loved this character growing up. And now I still have that love for these characters all these years later. But especially Kylie is a character that he has a storyline that is different than all of the others. You know, he's not very emotionally driven like Ash or Christopherson or Mr. Fox. He's just kind of the chill character. And I really love that about his character. I think it was very well written and very well executed in this film. I also want to touch on another relationship in this film, which is Mr. Fox and Clive Badger. Badger is a lawyer character, and he is Mr. Fox's friend, like best friend, but not in the same way that Kylie is Mr. Fox's best friend. He's supportive of Mr. Fox, but he is sort of an opposition to Mr. Fox as well. He doesn't support everything that Mr. Fox does, and especially in this film, he doesn't believe that Mr. Fox is doing the right thing. But I feel like their relationship is very complex, and it's not explored too greatly in this film, which is okay. It leaves a lot to the imagination, and I always, in my headcanon, I imagine them as like platonic friends, where they have sort of this love-hate relationship for each other, that's not necessarily romantic, but it is sort of on a level of personal personal connection. Um, and there is a scene in this film which, as a kid, I always laughed at and thought was really funny. But now that I'm grown up, I could see the sort of romantic tension between it in a way. And that just might be me being who I am, seeing it from that perspective. But I really get the sense that there's some unexplored relationship there that is beyond just platonic, that is sort of displayed in a very humorous way, so that children would not really pick up on it, but that as an adult you watch it and it's like, oh, they're like arguing, but they're also this sort of like romantic tension between them, and it's on full display in that scene. Um, and it's a really really interesting relationship. There's a lot of interesting relationships in this film, that I think Wes Anderson did such a great job sort of showing the importance of these relationships and making them feel grounded and real. This movie feels very relatable and real, and I think that's what makes it a beautiful piece of cinema. Um, and the complexity of the characters' stories, sort of how they end up together throughout the story, and when they're not together, and when they're out of their element, how they are so different from each other, and yet they're all still animals at the end of the day. They're wild animals, and that's also a major plot point, which I will touch on, is the idea that they are, at heart, wild animals, but they act like humans because they have that humanity and that anthropomorphized sort of knowledge and an identity. And I think that adds a lot to this movie as well. Touching on this idea of wild animals and humanity and the humanity that they have, a big sort of turning point in the plot of this movie occurs in the scene where Mr. Fox gets his tail shot off by the three farmers. This occurs in the book as well, but in the movie, it is a sort of metaphor for him losing something that all foxes have, a tail. And so the fact that he's lost his tail sort of signifies that he's lost a part of his identity. And it differentiates him from all of the other creatures, and they treat him differently because of this. And so there's this idea of sort of losing your humanity and your identity. And in this case, in the film, it's a physical loss that he loses, and he has to sort of cope and deal with that in his own way. And of course, Mrs. Fox helps, bandage the wound and everything. They show it. And the farmers take his tail and use this tail as sort of a bargaining tool and a way to show that they're better than him. And so it's this back and forth, sort of battle, who's better, who can outsmart who, and in the end, the tale is very symbolic of him changing his ways and learning to become a father, and sort of regaining that part of his identity at the end of the movie, albeit a little bit rougher looking than how it used to be, but it's still there, it's still intact, and it's a very, very cool piece of symbolic storytelling that I love the way they took that moment from the book, which has a very sort of different meaning in the book, um, and how Wes Anderson was able to create this as a metaphor in the story that really was a great thematic element in the story as a whole. And it's another great executed moment in this film, that I think is a turning point in this film. It really shows Mr. Fox that he has to change. His family is depending on him to change, and if he doesn't, then they're all gonna die. Before we discuss the finale of this film, we have to address a particular plot point throughout this film that is reoccurring, and that is Mr. Fox's phobia of wolves. This is stated earlier on in the film while they are on the way to rob one of the farmer's storage houses, and Kylie mentions a wolf, and Mr. Fox freaks out. He's like, "Where's the wolf? What, huh?" And it's a small sort of moment, but there's a couple of other moments just like this that happen, and you really get the sense that this wolf that Mr. Fox is afraid of isn't really a wolf. It's another deep thematic element in this film, and that is the wolf sort of represents his fear of fatherhood and fear of responsibility. And so the wolf represents responsibility and in a sense this thing that Mr. Fox is running from his entire life, because he doesn't want to address it. And in this finale, he is forced to address this and face it head on. And it is this beautiful poetic moment in the film where he accepts it and he raises his hand in the air as like a salute, and the wolf salutes back. And it's this subtle, very beautiful moment that sort of lingers in the film. You know, you get this moment for a little bit and it continues, and it's this sort of poetic moment that I could see a lot of people sort of being a little bit confused at because it's one of those moments that it has a deeper meaning to the point that just the surface level, it's kind of a random moment in the film, that they capitalize on. But to me, rewatching it now, it's one of my favorite moments in this entire film, because it is this sort of confrontation of something that Mr. Fox has been running from his whole life, but now he's finally learned and has the strength to accept it. So after this moment with the wolf, the film transitions into its final act, and this final act takes place in the sewer systems, which is now where all of these animals who are trapped underground live. They live in the sewers now. That is their sort of natural environment. And the farmers are still above ground trying to find them, which is how the book ended. It ended with the farmers still trying to find the foxes, but not being able to. And in this adaptation, the film concludes with the Fox family stumbling upon a giant warehouse. And they tunnel up, they take a sewer system up into it, and it turns out it's a supermarket of Bogus, Bunce, and Bean, the three farmers who were chasing them. And so it's this full circle moment where the thing that was trying to kill them ends up in the end being the saving grace of the entire story. And it's a funny moment. I think in the film it comes across more as comedy, but I think it is this full circle moment where Mr. Fox is finally gratified by all of the hard work and the struggles that he's had, throughout this entire film. And that struggle that he's having with these farmers is the thing that ultimately saves them as they poke their head out into this massive supermarket. And it's a funny ending, I think, but it's also a very fitting ending. I don't know how else they would end it. As I said, the book kind of ends it abruptly with them having a feast, and the farmers are still, huddled around the hole waiting for them to come out. So it's kind of just a generic ending, but I like that they put more effort into this ending, and it feels like a more satisfying ending. And once they tunnel up into this supermarket, they celebrate, and Mr. Fox makes a toast. And in this toast, he shows off his tail, which we previously talked about in part 2, which is the sort of loss of his identity, and it's restored now, but it's rougher, and it doesn't look as pretty as it used to, but he still has it, and he sort of pridefully shows it off. And it's a great full circle moment there as well. And he makes this speech, and at the end of the speech, Mrs. Fox says that she's pregnant again. And it's another full circle moment from the beginning of the film. But this time, instead of being anxious about it, he embraces it, and he's genuinely happy. And then music starts, and the film ends with them having like a dance party in the middle of this giant supermarket. And it's a very, very fun, very adventurous ending for this film. I suppose they could have made a sequel, but Roald Dahl never made a sequel to Fantastic Mr. Fox, so it wouldn't have made sense. But I like this ending. It's a very... It really shows the heart of the film is family, and they're finally able to let free and dance as a family. And so I think it's a really, really beautiful way to end this film. And overall, this film is full of a lot of deeper meanings that kids who watch this film probably won't pick up on unless the parents explain it. And that was certainly the way it was for me. When I first saw this movie, I was like, ooh, fun movie about foxes surviving farmers. It's a funny, happy adventure movie. But now that I'm grown up, it's like, no, this film is like beautiful in the way that it addresses these real world themes in people's lives, and it's really a powerful piece of cinema that was very much underrated at the time, and is still underrated in my opinion. I think it deserves a lot more love than it got, and I think that's partially because it was mainly advertised as a comedy film, and it wasn't what it said that it was. And I hope that for all of you who watched this 3-part series analysis, that you guys have a deeper appreciation for this film like I do. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's really fun talking about this movie because it is such a simple movie on the surface, but such a complex narrative adventure like underneath. And I think that was very much Wes Anderson's directing coming through. Like, he directed this, he had a vision for this movie, and it really came together in a beautiful, beautiful way. So thank you, Wes Anderson, for bringing us this beautiful, beautiful piece of cinema. Absolutely amazing. That's all for this review. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!